even if you do go to a coach, I think you should really try and like actually figure out what they're trying to do. Because I have people that are like, dude, just fix my ankles. Like, I don't care what you're doing, just tell me what to do. They never get as much progress as somebody who's like, explain to me what's going on. It gives you a really good sense of this is the result we're trying to get out of this exercise. And then you can really lock in and like focus on getting that result.
A lot of people end up getting into rehab to recover their ankles. What would you say to someone who feels like they're stuck in a perpetual cycle of rehab?
I've had people in their mindset is sort of like, my ankle problems are special. Nobody's been able to fix it. I'm going to do your program, but like more so to prove that you can't fix it either. The intent isn't there. It was like, do you want better ankles or do you want to be right? But if you're doing good things and you're having a hard time, it's like there might just be a piece of the puzzle missing. And like,
both you and Zach critiquing some of the form and exercises that top football clubs have been putting out. Tell me a bit more about some of the challenges you're seeing with what they're doing.
I have made some videos about stuff that Barcelona was doing. It's like a fallacy of like the best players in the world. They're just so naturally gifted. It's like Michael Jordan didn't lift weights and he was still dunking. Does that mean you don't need to lift weights to dunk? No, because you're not Michael Jordan. Like you can't dunk. My girlfriend's walked in here before and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to get so bored that I'm excited to do what I need to do. It's like I force myself into boredom. Sort of like a dopamine management thing of like, you'll see people that literally get thousands of times stuff more done than other people. You're going to feel good at the end of the day that you got a whole bunch of stuff done. Find out how you can get 10,000 times more results than what you're currently doing.
The mental part, I think, is one of the most interesting things. How do you overcome that identity that you're an injured player and referring to that ankle as an injured ankle?
If you prove to yourself enough times and with sufficient intensity that ankle is no longer injured, then you will forget about it. Proving to yourself is the hardest thing because you know everything. Once you prove to yourself so many times that this is not going to hurt, I can do what I want on this ankle, I can jump on it, I can sprint on it, I can land, all of these things, it's going to go away. Like that, you're going to forget about it.
Ever sprained your ankle on the field and found yourself sidelined longer than you'd like? Or maybe you know someone who's constantly battling ankle issues that just don't ever go away. Today, it's all about ankle recovery and injury prevention with expert Matthew Skaar. Recognized by Ben Patrick, creator of the ATG Ask the Grass athletic system, Matthew is a top ankle coach helping athletes get back on the pitch stronger than ever. Welcome to episode 4 of Progress Guaranteed, a masterclass style show where experts teach us how to make progress and live more fulfilled lives. By subscribing and rating the show on all platforms, you continue to learn from more experts, enhancing your skill sets and effectiveness in life. If there's someone you'd like to hear from, share your suggestions in the comments. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, thank you for getting me back on the pitch. That I feel amazing. You know, not 100%, but I'm back playing and I have a lot more confidence than I had before. And a lot of the knowledge that you gave me helped me to reframe certain things in my mind. So excited to walk through this journey with you.
Makes my day, man. I love hearing that. That's like why I keep doing it, is hearing that from people. So I'm super pumped.
Yes. So why do athletes and most people sprain their ankles?
So I think the easiest way to actually break this up is when people sprain their ankles for the first time or when people sprain their ankles again. When people sprain their ankles for the first time, a lot of times it's not anything you can do about it. It still happens to me. Like the other day, it was a couple of weeks back, I landed on somebody's foot and like a little baby sprain. And the difference for me now is that that would have knocked me out for like months and months before. And I finished the game the other day. So a lot of times it's landing on somebody's foot, it's stepping in a hole, it's tripping on something, it's getting your foot stuck in the ground, it's getting tackled, it's whatever. These are a lot of soccer examples, but like a lot of times it's something that just puts your foot in a position that you really can't do anything about it for the first time. Then after that, it could still be the same thing, like it very much could still be the same thing. But after that is when you get sort of a lot more of the non-contacts, you get a lot more of the flat ground, like I just sprained my ankle just walking around kind of sprains. And I think a lot of those are, I think, really stiff feet is what caused a lot of those. So if you would imagine something that can't yield at all. So like something that can't like handle pressure and sort of not collapse is the wrong word, but like load into. If it's something that's really stiff, like all that energy is going down, if it's not going to go straight down into the floor, like if it's something that can yield, you can push on a basketball in different ways and it's not going to like fall over.
Yes.
But if you try and push on like a really like a block and you don't push straight down, all of a sudden it's going to like fall to the side. So that's like an extreme example. I think a lot of people have these ankles that can't like pronate. Generally, pronation is the example that people can't do. But like when we say pronate, people don't know what pronate means. So it's really just like loading into that arch and letting the foot sort of yield. And I keep saying yield. Lengthen and load and handle that force, and then you can come back out of it. But if you can't do that, then you're so much more liable to fall to the side or have any other number of things happen. So
yeah. Well, I hope that people listening, we jumped in sort of quite technically, but I think this will reinforce the point that ankle injuries are not necessarily simple, and there are lots of parts to the joint. So we'll definitely dig into that. How often do you think ankle injuries occur in players, especially the? I'm here on behalf of the recreational desk warriors who did not make it to pro or semi-pro, but we still love all these sports. So how often do you think folks injure their ankles?
More than we should probably, but there was one study I saw a little while ago that there's something like 2 million ankle sprains in the US a year, which I think is actually low.
Right.
From what I would think there is. And that's probably just, I need to look back at it, but I think that's reported ankle sprains, like people that go see help for ankle sprains. So there's probably like 4, 5, 6 million ankle sprains in just the US every year. And I'm sure there's a couple people out there that are, probably half of those were just me when people deal with those recurring sprains. And that was me for a long time. But so I think something like that. And then there's the stat that followed that was like 70% of people don't actually heal from it and have recurring issues on the back. There's less than probably like 5 or 7 million people that sprain their ankles every year, but it's like that's probably the number of ankle sprains that happen. And then that's sort of like the main acute ankle injury, but you get a lot of people with Achilles tendinopathy, you get plantar fasciitis, you get people with just like sucky, stiff, not good feeling ankles, like at an enormous rate.
Yeah, you feel like 70, but you're really 30 years old. So my left ankle feels as if it's 65, and my right ankle feels like it's 30 something, ready to roll. So it's interesting how you can feel that sort of stiffness between both feet. What are some common ankle injuries that you see across players, right? So it's eversion, inversion, etc., and almost why do they take so long to heal?
Yeah, well, part of the reason that they take a long time to heal is that you don't think about them as ligament injuries, and your ACL is a ligament injury. ACL is a really long time. Granted, these aren't as massive and as difficult to deal with. Maybe they are as difficult to deal with, but they're not as big of a ligament. But they are ligament injuries, and there's basically no blood flow to ligaments. So it's a really hard thing to get healing to. It's why like muscles heal faster than tendons, they heal faster than ligaments, they heal faster than bone, and skin heals faster than muscle thing. But there's just not the blood supply there. So when you look at that as like the actual physical injury of grade 1, 2, 3 ankle sprain, it's like a grade 1, 2, 3 ligament tear, and it could be a bunch of ligaments. Like people will get inversion sprains, and they'll tear, or like all 3 of the ligaments on the side of their ankle, and then they'll have damage to the ones on the inside because they rotated out so far that you compress all the ones on the inside so much that people end up with sort of medial and lateral problems with that, inside and outside problems with that. So that's part of it. But like if that was just a problem, it would be like a couple months for an ankle sprain, and then you would just be good to go forever. I think what the problem a lot of times is that the ankle is really a pretty complex structure with the whole foot, and then you pull in the calf and the shin and everything. After an ankle sprain, like things get tight and things change because every time you take a step, you use that ankle. And you end up with that tightness. You end up with patterns that are meant to keep you safe from that ankle injury. So I'll see people that have recurring sprains on the outside of their ankle, and then they end up just dumping to the inside the whole time. so they don't have to load that outside part of the ankle, and then that ends up being its own set of issues, and then you try to compensate based on that, and you end up with this like 7-layer cake full of just ways to work around pain. So I think that's a big part of it, is that there's so many things going on that get reinforced every time you take a step for however long. And then there's also like people like to come back early, and then you re-injure it, and then you do things like that. And I also think generally rehab people don't do a great job of it. Like like the biggest thing I hear of people like, I ask them like, "What'd you do for this?" I just kind of waited. Well, that's not the best thing to do, but so I think that's another thing with it. You never just like tear your ACL and wait.
What are the top 3 things that are most challenging in ankle recovery?
The 3 things that would be the most challenging. One of them is definitely getting pronation back, because for the sole reason of you can't pull yourself in. And point 2 would probably be like working through different compensation things. And then 3 would be like getting people to feel the right things. Because a lot of times you can't, like a lot of people have done calf raises for a long time, and then I'll have them do calf raises and they're like, dude, I could do like 3. I thought I could do like 20 with half my body weight or something. It was like, no, you can just lean forward and kind of like hike yourself up and like get to the top of a calf raise. But when you really do a calf raise, like...
So all of the work that you show folks how to do, how long did it take you to figure out all of that in your own ankle to come back playing confidently?
Yeah. So it's a different thing and people ask me the question of how long will it take me to come back?
Yeah, that's
they'll ask me how long it took for me to come back. And it's a bad question, because it's probably going to be shorter for you, because it took me however long to figure all of these things out, and like over time. So it's sort of like building a bridge of like
it's not like the best example.
Part of it. And yeah. So for me, it was, I don't know. I mean, I really started like leaning into trying to figure things out my 4th year of college, of like really locking in and trying to figure it out. And then to be able to play and not worry about it, that probably took me 3 years. 3-ish years. And it was, so that was kind of the way it was. And I didn't figure everything out on my own. Like there were a lot of people that taught me a lot of things. I paid a lot of money to coaches just to pick their brain. And I would get little pieces out of it. So that was helpful. So that was generally the time for, and it was like a very evolving thing of, this is the answer. Actually, it wasn't the answer. This is the answer. Wasn't actually the answer either. Just me constantly thinking I had the solution, and then it just not being the solution. Until I had just put enough things together that I'm pretty confident this is what it is, and now I just have to put the time into it. So that's generally how it went.
How it worked. No, I'm glad that you say that, because just like yourself, I've been through a couple of coaches for my ankle, and each one of them has given me something a little different. They've educated me in a new way. I've learned about the foot and ankle in a new way. So I've been kind of compiling all of them together, and you were sort of my last ankle coach before I went back and started to play a decent amount. And what I enjoyed about working with you is other folks took me through the moves and a lot of other holistic things, about posture and all these different measurements or different exercises. But at least with you, I got into the anatomy of the foot, because there was some pain that I was feeling that I couldn't really resolve. So I think the message for those that are listening, if you do have an ankle injury, especially a chronic one, post couple of years, it's worth it to go with a coach and do that discovery for yourself. Because I do think it will compress the amount of time. It doesn't have to take 3 years. Because, for instance, to learn the stuff that I learned from you, if I had to go figure that shit out for myself, that's a next 2-year journey of just YouTubing and watching all kinds of things. So
yeah, and I think even if you do go to a coach, I think you should really try and actually figure out what they're trying to do. Because I have people that do just fix my ankles. I don't care. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Just tell me what to do. And they never get as much progress as fast as somebody who's explain to me what's going on, why it's going. And part of that is just like that those people can give me better feedback of like what they're feeling and what's going on. And then I can make changes with that and make things more accurate. But it's also like it gives you a really good sense of this is what I should be feeling. This is what I'm trying to do here. This is the result we're trying to get out of this exercise. And then you can really lock in and like focus on getting that result. If you're just, all right, I got to do calf raises, and you're just doing calf raises for no reason, like you have no thought in your head of like why you're doing the calf raises, like you're just not going to get nearly as much out of it. So the more you understand, then like the more, like that's why I really like having coaches come to me, because they have like a pretty good base understanding of like foot and ankle, and then I can just like throw a couple things on that people hadn't thought about before, and then give them sort of lay out a plan, and then it's like things just rock. Like things are so good like that. Or people that have already done my stuff for a while and then just need help with the last little thing. Like that just like that unlocks things so much faster than me just like trying to give you something and you just blindly following it.
Yeah, I did learn that, and I don't know if this is probably an ATG system. So I had actually did a couple of sessions with Zach Woodward, a good friend of yours, and he taught me a lot about rep quality. And in working with you, that was another thing that you were stressing about the quality of reps. What's your message to people about, really honing in on that rep quality?
Everything is about intent. It's literally everything. Like you could do the best rep scheme. You could do the perfect exercises. You could do whatever you want to. If the intent isn't there, it's not going to do anything. As much as I've tried and other people have tried to find exercises that no matter what your intent is, as long as you do them, you're going to get better. Like they're just not there. Like that intent to like one of the ways that I have people try to pronate the foot and work on pronating the foot is do these pronation exercises where you're in a split stance and you're moving your knee forward and coming back. And like I get people that are, I've been doing this for a while, dude. I haven't did nothing locked. And then I watch them do it, and you're totally missing the whole intent. Like you've gotten nothing out of this because you haven't been focusing on the right thing and the intent hasn't been there. And I know Zach loves it for the knees of if you're not controlling in the squat, like if you're just bouncing, it's a very, very different stimulus. So and it's not that it's always bad. It's just very different. The intent makes the exercise what you want it. If you like a bounce out of the bottom of the squat versus a control through the full range and a squeeze out, it's a very different exercise than like a 1 1/4 bouncing out of the bottom.
When it comes to, a lot of people end up getting into rehab to recover their ankles. What would you say to someone who feels like they're stuck in a perpetual cycle of rehab? Because I think I want to say I'm still there, but it's as if like, okay, I have to, when do I stop doing these exercises and my ankle is good and I'm ready to go kind of vibe,
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a tough thing because it depends on what you're doing. Like some people have in the cycle of my ankle hurts, I'm going to go to PT and they're going to do scraping and grafting and give me a massage. And then they're going to tell me to do calf raises. And I'm going to do that for a while. And then it's not going to hurt so bad. And I'm going to go try and play my sport again. And then all this hurts really bad again. Then we'll go back to the PT for massage. And if that's your cycle, then like find better rehab.
That was my cycle, by the way.
But if you're doing good things and you're having a hard time, it's like there might just be a piece of the puzzle missing. And I mean, if you're doing it on your own, either way, whether you're doing it on your own or doing it with somebody else, everybody has their own experiences. So everybody's going to be really good at different things. And everybody's going to present you with different parts of a puzzle. And some people might have everything that you need, and some people might only have like 95% of what you need. And you go to somebody else, and they would have only generally had 50% of what you need, but they did have that last 5% that you need. So like that's like I'm trying to like collect as many of the pieces of the puzzles that I can give to other people as possible. But like, I'll admit I don't have everything for everybody. There's people that I haven't been able to help, and I just give them their money back because I can't really. I've tried everything I can with you, and usually there's a little bit of a mindset issue here. So people who come in, like, dude, I've tried everything, and like the follow-up question is always, have you really tried at anything? Did you give anything like Did you give anything a real shot, or did you try all these things for 2 weeks and like half-ass it? And then now you're trying to say that nothing works for you.
Right.
It's usually the second. Like Like you should, like if you really believe that something's going to work and you believe that you're going to make it work, like even if it's not a great program, usually some sort of like placebo is going to pop in. You're going to get significantly better.
You know, after our initial coaching, I realized I was not putting in the effort and the intent, as you're saying, to really go through that program like 100%. But the pieces that I did put in, I saw the progress. But like you're saying, I'm pretty straightforward. I've also coached people, so I know how to be disciplined. But it's a very strange thing. And what's kind of even funny is like my partner's a coach, so you know she also sees the irrationalness of clients, and I think I was sort of in your camp in terms of, you know, why are these people coming with this attitude? And I think my only reflection on that is you end up adopting an injured identity to a degree, and I think you just get exhausted, and that sometimes you don't have the energy to go really put yourself into this new thing, because your track record of putting whatever you think is great effort, and that's the other thing too, like the actual effort that it takes is probably way more than what you think is your effort, like the real effort that it takes. So that's another challenge. So yeah, it's pretty complex, and I'm glad that you're calling out this effort thing, because I think a lot of people just think ankle, you do the exercise and you're good, but it seems like more and more intense effort to the exercise, probably over a period of time, is a significant factor to the healing.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of effort. I don't think people understand the effort, right? You're like, dude, I tried really hard. I took the calf raises to failure, but that's not the effort I need from you. I need the effort from you to really sit in that ankle and feel it and understand and follow the instructions, and like the effort towards the intent of doing it for this reason versus the intent of like the effort for like doing hard things and like making your calf really burn. Like that will come, but like the hard part is not doing the exercises, it's doing them right.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like almost you have to become one with your ankle. You have to really, you said feel and intent, so I'm going to probably equate feeling and intent to be very close to each other. Is that a fair way to look at it?
I think it's part of it. I don't know that I would equate that. Like intent is such a broad thing. Like
right,
it's really a hard thing to define. Like you can have. It's hard to have the intent that I ask out of people without decent feel in your ankle. Like you can have intent otherwise without much of a feel. And it, I guess, well, if you take feel as like as a broad term of like feeling how you're doing an exercise, then maybe you could.
Well, when I say
intent as like the change of the feel.
When I say feel, I mean intention. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move my heel, and then you're listening to the response inside of your ankle, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna push it a little more. You're looking for pain, but you're also being probably very present throughout the entire rep, so that, and then working with you. Yeah. And I think the other thing why you may be stressing intentionality is to reinforce the mental connection inside of the ankle. Is that one of the things you're going after as well?
That's a helpful thing. It is a helpful thing. And so if you bring your pronation up, but part of the thing with pronation is that if you can't feel it when you're hyper focused on it, and you can't get it to happen when you're not under a tremendous amount of time pressure or load or whatever, you're gonna have a hard time doing it in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you can't pronate when you're just moving your foot over your knee forward over your foot, then you know a hard time doing it when you're sprinting or like when you're about to jump, and you're just going to pop back to old patterns that you don't really want to be in. And whether that's good or not, like depends on if you're in pain or you want to like really optimize things. But like overall, like it's sort of, yeah, it is important. But like I don't need people to be like a yogi where they can like really feel everything in their foot. Like they do the walking meditations where they just all they focus on is their gait and how they walk, or maybe they're looking around or something. I don't know, but that's not what I need. I just need enough sense in your foot that you can get the things that we want to happen. And then so that in the future, you cannot think about it. We're thinking about it now so that you don't have to in the future.
That's a really important point, because I do think as you go through these exercises, you become so hyper aware that you stick with that hyper awareness. And when you're playing, you start analyzing all the little movements that you're making and almost getting cautious. So it's good. It's good that you're calling out after your rehab, stop thinking and play almost, right?
Yeah. And I mean, once you've done 900 calf raises with really good intent, then you don't really need to you don't need to spend so much time really drilling that intent in. Like, it's not going to be so hard. It's just going to be natural. That's how I do calf raises. I do calf raises perfectly because that's how I've done all the calf raises for the last and like, it doesn't have to be calf raise. But then when you're competing, dude, don't think about it. Like, and that's an easier thing to say than to do. Of don't think about it, but you don't want to be actively thinking about it because it's gonna, like, everything happens so fast, and like at that point, it's one of the things you just have to let it go, and whatever you've done before then is what's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to change things as you're planting and trying to chase somebody. So it's like it's almost like there's the idea of studying numbers to leave numbers, like really understanding data so that you no longer have to look at the data anymore. Like, you really focus on function until the point that you no longer have to worry about function.
I see. That makes sense. Let's talk about isometrics. I know that's a big part of your training. A lot of folks know what isometrics is, but just for folks who might not, practice that style, what are isometrics and why are they beneficial for sort of ankle bulletproofing?
Yeah. So, I mean, the easiest way to define isometrics is an exercise where you are not moving in space. And there's two ways to do it generally. There's overcoming and yielding. So overcoming would be, I am trying as hard as I can to move an object that will not move. Like, you're trying to overcome an immovable object, and you never do. So you never physically move in space, but you're making the effort to move in space. And then yielding is trying to prevent movement. So like, if you're standing on your toes and you're holding 500 pounds, like, you're gonna have a hard time standing on your toes. That effort to prevent movement is the yielding isometric. So they're the same in the sense that you don't move, but they're different in the intention. Little bit different intention, but so the reason that they're so important is generally twofold. So actually threefold. First is that they're super gentle a lot of times. Like with people that, like, I had trouble with calf raises for a really long time. Couldn't do them. So it's all right. Well, I have to find some way to build some strength in my calf. I can do isometrics in the different positions. Deeper ankle range of motion isometrics were a little bit more difficult, but I could hold them in the mid range. I could hold at the top of a calf raise, and it didn't cause a real spike in pain because you don't have so much of that actual, like, that movement and the damage to the muscles and everything. So it's an easy way for people to get started, but you can also progress them to where they get really difficult. So one of the things that I worked up to was like doing an isometric hold in a Smith machine where my heel was floating off the ground and my knee was just slightly bent with like almost twice my body weight on my back, just to hold that position on one leg. You don't hold it for very long, but like the ability for your ankle to handle 3 times body weight and not let your heel drop is it's fairly strong, and you can target different positions of it. So if you imagine a calf raise, you don't have the same strength at all points of the calf raise. Like, generally people are stronger at the bottom of a calf raise than they are at the top. So if you could maybe do a calf raise holding 90 pounds at the bottom, you could get out of the bottom, but you wouldn't be able to fully lock out at the top. So if you do 90 pounds on a calf raise, like, you're getting a lot of work at the bottom, but like, you can't get to the top. Maybe you can do 70 at the top. So you do 70 and you work the top really well, but also like, you're not working the bottom because you're only using 70 pounds when you could be using 90. So that's one of the things like isometrics is that, like, we can maximally load the top position, we can maximally load the mid range, we can maximally load the bottom range. And then you get this sort of a carryover effect of like, if you get really strong in one range, it works 15 degrees in either way. So like you're getting the strength through that 30 degrees bisected by whatever position you were in. So that can be really helpful. And then sort of the final point is that like, it's really good for tendons and like connective tissues, generally tendons mainly. Because tendon, like, people are better at explaining this than me, but like when you do things fast with tendons, there's a different contraction than when you do things really slow. So when you do a jump, do a hop, sprint, whatever, a lot of the fibers of the tendon aren't actually lengthening. Like the main fibers aren't actually lengthening. It's sort of like everything around it that just like lengthens and snaps back into place. And so then when you get something like an Achilles tendinopathy, or you have whatever post-tib tendinopathy, tendinosynovitis, whatever, when you actually want to load those tissues, like you get damage to them. That's what a tendinopathy is a lot of times. It's like a little hole or something in the tendon. And when you do things fast, it works the tissues around that area, and it's called stress shielding, and it won't actually work that one area. So when we do an isometric, it's your muscle is just pulling as hard as it can on the tendon, because like it's not going anywhere. It's just pulling on the tendon, and that muscle will actually, so people call isometrics like the slowest form of movement, because there is actually movement, but it's just like a change in the ratio between how long your muscle is compared to your tendon. So if we're looking at the calf, you're squeezing with the gastroc, you're squeezing with the soleus, and it's pulling on that Achilles. So just like microscopically, your muscle is shortening and your Achilles is lengthening, but it's pulling, and it's pulling that whole tendon in a different way that it pulls when you do a hop or something. So it gets rid of that stress shielding. You're able to target all of the fibers, all the collagen in the Achilles. And it works really well for the knee if you jump a lot for patella tendinopathy. But that's another part of it, is you can stress tissues in a different way. And you can still get a similar effect when you do like calf raises or something that are slower and in control, but you can be really specific with what you want for isometrics. Like there's not another way that you can put maximal effort into something you can when you push against an immovable object. So like I'll have people, your heel will be floating, but you're pushing as hard as you can into a bar that's loaded with like 700 pounds. And like you are absolutely driving into it. Or like I have a dynamometer that tells me how hard you're pulling, and I'll strap it to people's like torso and then like under a box, and they're driving, trying to get up on their calf. And like when you can see the number of like, I'm pushing you with like 700 newtons right now, that's like an intent that is hard to get without that number. Like that intent to really push, you don't get feedback on it and just like pushing against an immovable bar. But if you have the feedback of like, you pushed this hard this time, that hard last time, you sprinted this fast this time, this fast last time, you can start to make these adjustments of, oh, this actually makes me push harder. So if you run faster, say if you jump higher. And that's another cool thing you can do with isometrics. So there's my sales pitch on
isometrics. No, I like it because I think that was the first thing you had me do. And I tried a bunch of things. I'd done a little bit of isometrics, but you were just like, okay, we're going to isometric the shit out of your ankle. And I was like, okay, what the hell is going on? And so you start feeling so much more things. And I like the fact that you're calling out this gradual lengthening of the tendon. So your muscle is shortening, but your tendon is also sort of giving over time. And it does seem like a much more complete way to utilize the tendon throughout its probably range of motion. And it seems like you have a lot more control in doing it. It fucking sucks. I think for the most that as a client, like it's, I don't know.
Isometrics can at all.
Really? Yeah. Interesting.
Well, when you do it.
That's a fair point. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about pain, because I think a lot of people, and even before I met you, I was working through a lot of pain, and I had the mindset, okay, the more pain I'm feeling, I'm actually like, this thing is healing, it's getting better. How should we be thinking about pain and ankle recovery?
Yeah, I think so. There's a guy, Brady, I don't know what his last name is. DAC Performance is what he's on Instagram. And I love the way that he talks about pain, is that it's just a signal. All it is a signal. It could be wrong, it could be right, it could be better, or it could be worse. Like, you just have to interpret it as a signal that your body thinks something is wrong. Is something wrong? Like, maybe, maybe not. Probably. It's not. It generally isn't that wrong. But you can't just freak out over pain. Like, you have to like sit with it a little bit and sort of like go. I did this for a long time of like, dude, my ankle hurts. Where's my ibuprofen bottle?
Okay.
And like trying to forget about it and trying to get rid of it. It's like you didn't fix anything. You just turned off the fire alarm. It's just, there's still a fire. So that, maybe that's the case against anti-inflammatories more than it is for pain. But obviously, really bad pain you don't want to work through. Generally, we don't want to work through too much pain at all. And I don't necessarily agree with people that work through no pain ever at all. Like, then I get people that are going to be doing very, very little of anything. People that you're going to put on crutches or something because they can't walk like that. So, like, generally the recommendation is like 2 or 3 out of 10 is probably okay. And then look at it the next day or 24, 48 hours later. It's like, did this make it way worse? Did it feel the same? Did it feel better afterwards? Like, that's an important metric to understand. And a lot of people get confused with that of, all right, I just did my exercise and it feels okay now. So that must have been fine. And then 2 days later, they'll, dude, my Achilles hurts so bad. I didn't even do anything yesterday. Like, why does this just randomly happen? So it's from what you did 2 days ago, but you just didn't make that link. And then you just keep doing it. So people do that with tendinopathy a lot. But yeah, I mean, the pain thing is sort of, you kind of have to sit with it and understand what's going on and avoid things that make it worse, just generally, and then not freak out over it all the time and use it as the signal that it really is.
So I think you had an example of your back pain, I think, in some of your posts and how you started exercising and that to some degree cured your back pain. Why do you think the adage of don't do anything and it'll get better is sort of the norm that's promoted? Just rest. Everything will come to pass.
Because it makes it feel better.
Okay.
Like, until you start doing something again. I think I put a post out about this the other day of like, I keep trying to do hard things. Like, I keep trying to jump as high as possible. I keep trying to run faster. I keep trying to play like quite a bit of soccer because I don't want the reason for my ankle pain to go away to be that I'm just not doing anything anymore. If you never do anything challenging, yeah, not everybody, all their ankle pain will go away, but like pretty significant amount of stuff will go away if you just don't do anything difficult. And I don't want that to be the answer.
Right.
So I like doing things. So I, for a long time, was of, all right, I'm just going to rest and this should be fine in 4 weeks. And then I'll come back and it was exactly the same. So I don't know. I like, after an ankle sprain, one of the worst things you could do is rest. You can't just you can't just wait and then hope it's fine on the other side. Because things are going to happen and things are going to like stiffen up and you have to reverse what happened. You can't just like wait.
I like that. You have to reverse what happened. That's a good intentional framing there. So you mentioned blood flow. The foot doesn't get as much blood. That's sort of counterintuitive because like as you think of it's under gravity, there's my heart is pumping blood. There should be blood headed down there. Maybe the blood doesn't make its way back up. What are some ways that you can increase circulation of blood into muscles and tendons and ligaments into your feet? Blood goes into ligaments too, right?
Very, very little amounts.
Okay.
And less in the tendon and then more in the tendon and then more in the muscle. It's actually tendons that are really pissed off actually have more blood supply than ones that aren't, which is interesting. They get the vascularization increases when you have an issue with it. So I used to say it, and then like there's still people that say it. I was like, you got a tendon issue, like you're bringing blood flow to the tendon. It's like, well, you maybe, but also it's probably already got more blood flow than a normal tendon because it's injured.
I see. Okay.
That's sort of people said, I've said that in the past, other people said it's sort of an inaccuracy. But yeah, I mean, the reason that I think the foot and the ankle probably don't get as much blood flow as other areas. Is like it's like farther away, so which is like a terrible, like not the best example, but like it literally is farther away. So like it's a little bit harder to like people that have I think it's Reynolds, and I don't know how you pronounce it, but like they have like decreased blood flow, I believe, to their fingers and their toes.
Makes sense. So there's a lot of, the barefoot sprinting movement, right? So another one of your colleagues is famously the barefoot sprinter. Big fan of him as well. But cleats, like football cleats, are the most narrow friggin' shoes, toe shoes in the world. How do you think that contributes to people's injuries over time? Do you think there's anything in there?
Yeah, I mean, the worst sprain that I ever had was actually because of my cleats, but not because cleats are inherently bad, but I decided to wear a pair that were a full size too small, and I could not feel anything. Like I specifically remember not being able to feel the ground when I was playing and not understanding where my ankle was in space. And I thought it would be fine, and then it was fine until it wasn't, and I was in a boot for a month and a half, and then out for however long with it. And it was like it still landed on somebody's foot, but dude, I couldn't feel anything. And that's like how when you lose proprioception of the foot and the understanding of where your foot moving is and is in space, like that's what it feels like. It's the same thing. Like I was at a higher risk for spraining because I was wearing cleats that cut off my proprioceptive abilities. Other people just have bad proprioceptive abilities, so they're at a higher risk for sprains and other issues. But cleats overall, I mean, I'm not as anti cleats as some people are. I just don't think you wear them enough to really, like, obviously bad fitting cleats that are too tight or like the wrong shape for your foot, probably gonna like that could lead to some issues. But like if you wear something that's comfortable and you only wear them like 2 hours a day, if that, then like I just don't think it's a big enough differentiator. Like I think there's much bigger fish to fry than like trying to tell people to wear barefoot cleats. And also like
is that a thing coming out now?
Yeah, dude. I've had some people reach out to me, and they're really nice people, and they're really well intentioned. But they're some of the ugliest cleats I've ever seen in my entire life. Mm-hmm. Like
that's just barefoot shoes in general. It's just an ugly category of shoes.
But it's so bad, man. Some of the ones I've seen are so bad that I don't care if this makes my ankles way better. I will not wear this. Like, there is not a chance you're going to catch me wearing those on my feet in a game. And then there's also the performance aspect of it, of like, it probably is beneficial to have like relatively tightly packed feet in your shoe, because you're always going to know that your foot is in exactly the same place, and like things aren't going to shift around, and like you're not going to have your toes like actually like slid over to the side one time and it's going to hit the empty space in your cleat and bounce differently. Like I like to have relatively tight cleats because it makes my foot feel very sturdy, like not sturdy or compact, but I feel very confident. I know
solid
where my foot's going to be at all the time. Yeah, like there's no. I hate when my foot shifts around in the cleats. Like that's my number one thing. I send them back every time if my foot moves. Like these are like they're going back if I slide at all. So I want the consistency of where my foot is, how it's going to feel when I step, all these different things. Because if I have to think about those while I'm playing, it's just not going to work. Like I can't think about those while I'm playing.
Okay, that's a good. I didn't think it would take that direction, but that's interesting, because that's probably something people experience if they go into the barefoot movement. Toes spread, any toes closed, you're this
you're non-functioning.
Yeah, you're a non-functioning human. You're a waste of time. What you call it, of the species, blah blah blah. But it's interesting that you're kind of calling back. Football is a very specific type of activity, and having maybe some of that compactness there is benefit to that. And then I think even more to your intent comment, it probably helps that you have to train in that environment as well, right? Because if I train like this and then I go play like this, I'm estimating I do lose a bit of proprioception by not operating in this environment. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, there's some research out, and people have talked about it before. You can't do all your training barefoot and then try to get back into shoes or cleats and try and perform like that. You have to be pretty aware of how things feel.
Okay.
And I mean, if
you're shutting me down, by the way, I want you to know you're just shutting down all the things I've been trying to do. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, barefoot training is great. It's not like people swing the pendulum too far in both ways on it. It absolutely doesn't matter that you don't ever need to train barefoot. Well, probably it's going to help you. Like, it's just movement variability at the bare minimum. But then people you should never wear shoes. Well, you're not going to like spontaneously combust. Like you can wear shoes every once in a while. Like, it's not a big deal, man. And if your shoes like aren't perfectly allow your foot to help you climb up a tree or something, like it's not that deep. And if you look at if you're trying to be the best athlete, when you look at any athlete's foot, like you're just not gonna find anybody that's really fast or really athletic or really, really good at this, really good at a sport that requires you to wear shoes that have this huge toe splay and really nice looking feet like that. It's just not. Could it happen? Like, yeah, it could happen. Like, you could be a really great athlete without that. But like, the evidence is pretty clear on that aspect of like, you can see these pictures of literally every sprinter's foot looks the same, and it's like,
oh really? Oh,
if you look at sprinters that are barefoot, like they all have the same foot as Usain Bolt. It's like a flat arch. It's toes that are scrunched up together. That's really it. But like, that's what a fast foot looks like generally. And there's one aspect of it, and this is probably more of a sprinter thing than like a field sport athlete. But like, the wider that your toe box is, and the wider of a space that you use to put force into the ground, the more you have to disperse force over a larger area.
Mm-hmm. Like, so you won't get as much power output, is what you're saying, to a degree.
Slightly,
right?
yeah. And like, how much of a difference does this really make? Like, probably not that much of a difference. But like, if you're Noah Lyles, you just won the 100-meter dash by 5 thousandths of a second, then you might want to optimize as much as you can. And like, I don't think Noah Lyles would run as fast as if he was wearing barefoot track cleats than he did like when he was wearing normal ones. Like those, like you create unnatural things like that for performance benefits. Like when people, everything should be all natural. No, it probably shouldn't. That's not how you like. If you just strictly care about performance, it's not going to be natural. Like, it's by nature that it's unnatural for people to run that fast or be able to run a sub 2-minute marathon. Like, there's no way you would ever wear those Vaporfly or whatever Jogi's shoes are that he wears. Nobody would ever want to wear those all day, every day. Like, that'd be terrible. But they help them run a marathon in under 2 minutes. And like, you get track athletes who have like the shoes that have this like reverse heel. No, it's just a heel drop. It's a reverse heel drop where like there's a big bulky part in the front of the spike, and then the heel just floats, and it just helps. It's like a additional spring. This isn't like you got to go buy those stupid Victory insoles that have like the carbon fiber thing. That doesn't help. But I see them everywhere. That doesn't help. That's probably like a one-way recipe to plantar fasciitis, but one-way ticket to plantar fasciitis.
One-way ticket.
Yeah. Natural is not always the best. It's just what your goal is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So athletes, okay, so just pay attention to all the barefoot training. I am one of those people, so I go run around the field barefoot and then I go put on shoes to play, and I'm just like, this feels weird. I don't know if I'm doing the same things that I should. So, thanks for calling out. Go train in shoes as well.
Well, right? Well, I spent an entire summer. So the COVID summer, I spent my entire summer training. I couldn't go to the gym. I spent my entire summer training barefoot at the field. No, not soccer training, but jumping plyos sprinting, all that barefoot at the field. And the thing was that I still dosed it. I still play in my cleats when I would go play every day or however often I would go play. But I didn't have any noticeable like performance deficits when I went back to wearing shoes all the time. And maybe it was because I continued to dose in. Like I went there in shoes and I left in shoes. But like I trained without shoes. So that was actually I actually felt really good for that season until I tore my hamstring. But I felt really good for the first couple of games in the preseason like that. So I'm pro barefoot training. I'm just not a stickler for like everything has to be done. And I train barefoot like the majority of the time. So I don't want to sound like I'm like anti barefoot, but like when I'm in the gym in the garage over there,
it's barefoot.
I'm doing things barefoot generally. Yeah. Like when I'm going out and like doing a dunk session at the basketball courts, like I did earlier today, like that is definitely not barefoot. That would destroy me. But there's a balance to be found there.
Makes sense. So you're part. Technically, I think you're part of the ATG crew still. I believe, right?
I think technically, yeah.
Okay.
Ben is I love Ben. Ben is an awesome dude. So I sort of stick around just so I have access to Ben in the sense, and other Ben and Keegan, and there's some other guys there that are really awesome. So,
well, first, congrats on at least making it to that level of sort of recognition, because I think he's done a lot in terms of shifting people's mindset in this space. But he quoted you as one of the people who had really nice Nordic, and I saw the Nordic. It looked beautiful.
Thank you.
Talk about Nordics, and I think that was one level up that I did after the ATG thing. I went and I bought a Nordic bench, and I think it's been one of the most beneficial things for my own football and athletic career. But tell folks some things about Nordics and how to get good at them.
Yeah, so I still remember I first came across Ben's stuff, and I was like, dude, I really want to be able to do Nordics, but like I didn't have a way to do them. So me and my dad like built our own Nordic bench. Well, I guess my own Nordic bench out of like 2x4s and like a steel pipe and some like plumbing foam and like an old, what do you call it? Like camping mat that you would put under your sleeping bag, and then some faux leather we got from the store. I actually just sold it a little while ago to get it out of the garage.
Interesting.
I did. I know where to put it. And I was like, this is cool, but it could be cool to keep for sentimental stuff. But what am I going to? I'm just going to look at it forever. My Rogue one is so much better. But I would literally carry that around in the back of my car. I would go train in the summer with one of my buddies who was on the team, and we would lift, and I would throw a bunch of dumbbells and my Nordic bench in the back of my car, and we would drag it out to the field and train, and then go train. But I couldn't do a Nordic the first time I did it in like 2021 or whatever that was. I couldn't do it. I could hardly hold my way down at all. And then I did, so there was an old protocol that Ben had of 5 Nordic eccentrics and 5 every minute for 5 minutes. So 25 eccentrics in 5 minutes. Brutal, first of all. But I did that for a long time. And then we were at the field training after we dragged it all the way down to the field, which was a long way. I was trying to explain to him, I was like, so what I really want to be able to do is control down like this, and then you just sort of like pop up, and I just popped up. That was what just happened. So that was the first time I ever did one. And I was like, dude, I promise you, I've been wanting to do that for a really long time. He's like, dude, get out of here. But we'd actually been doing Nordics with the college team for a while. And I was very much not the best guy at Nordics out of everybody on the team. We had dudes that were doing full Nordics without really having ever tried them. And a lot of them were freaks, really good athletes. Just banging out full Nordics with people holding their heels down, which is crazy. Really hard to do. And then, I mean, dude, I just did a lot. I did a lot of Nordics. I just kept doing them. And maybe there's something with my mechanics that's better with it. Maybe there's an aspect of the soccer players using eccentric knee flexion when you kick to prevent your knee from hyperextending and stuff like that. It could have helped with it. Maybe being relatively athletic and getting pretty athletic helped with it. But I just did so many Nordics for so long that it became really easy. And like I don't do too many anymore because like they're kind of boring. Like I can make them hard, but like I don't do too many Nordics. It's like I'll go back to it every once in a while, and it's like I can still do them pretty well. So like we do variation. I'll do variations on them of like I elevate my knees so that I can fully lock out my knees at the bottom and then come back up, or I'll do floating. Like we found a lot of ways to make things difficult. Like me and some of the guys did it with bars on our back. That's tough. Yeah, we would do it with a full barbell on our back. I have a video of it. It's crazy. And we tried. Some of the guys can do single leg ones now.
Single leg Nordics.
Yeah, I had to elevate the bench some to do my single leg. I've never done a flat ground one, but I've been surpassed in my Nordic ability by some of the guys. So it is a really good hamstring exercise. It's not like some people like will, and like I probably did in the past, but people will give it like the bulletproofing term of like, you'll never tear your hamstring again if you can do 5 full Nordics. Like I hurt my hamstrings a couple times when I could do like really good Nordics. Like that's not the only thing. But if you can do 5 full Nordics or whatever the test is, then you're going to be in a better spot than you would have been otherwise. So it's one of my favorite hamstring exercises. It's like, it's hard for a lot of people. I had my mom try it one week and it just blew up her knee and we didn't do any more Nordics. We could have regressed it and got her there, but it just wasn't worth the time. There were other things that we could do. So I like them. I think it's a really good, especially when you can get good at them and you can really load that like nearly straight knee position. Like that's a really specific position, and you can do different things. Like if you have the right setup, you can bend at the hip and you can really stretch the crap out of that hamstring. As you lengthen from both sides, that's a really tough position to get into. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's also a calf exercise. When you look at it, if you have the calf plate, like a foot plate at the bottom, so like especially like when you do that MSL Nordics where you start flat and you pop up, you actually get a lot of calf right at the beginning because that gastroc, so your outer calf muscle crosses the knee, and it'll start that knee flexion a little bit for you, and then it gets some slack in it and you lose it. But like it does quite a bit it actually does quite a bit, especially right at that very end range of having the knee straight enough. So not the best way to strengthen your calf, but like it is an interesting thing because your hamstring and your calf kind of like cross each other over like that, and then they sort of like have that co-contraction that's actually really important. So part of the thing is like in the process of getting strong calves, you get strong everything else, because like the calves are technically a supinator of the foot as well, because they pull on that Achilles and they plantarflex the ankle. But also whenever you are strengthening the calf, you're also strengthening the peroneals on the outside of your ankle. You're strengthening the post tib on the inside of the ankle. You're like all of the other like extrinsic foot muscles, you're strengthening all of those as well. So like as a byproduct of getting strong calves, you get strong everything else. But also when you have a strong calf, it creates strong connection for your Achilles to stretch off of. So the free energy that comes from your Achilles and different tendons like that only happens when your muscle can sufficiently contract isometrically. So like this is part of the benefit of isometrics, of like if you're trying to bounce and not let your heels hit the ground and get that free energy back from the Achilles, that connection with the heel is very rigid, like it's connected to the heel. With your Achilles, like, so if this is your Achilles and this is your muscle, you're trying to get this muscle to hold this length. So as that heel drops, you get the length of the Achilles and then it snaps back like a rubber band. But if as this heel drops, if your calf can't hold it, like you just stay in the same Achilles length position and it's just your calf collapsing. And your calf can't pull that hard to get you to do those explosive movements. So the isometric ability of the muscle connected to the tendon, this is getting pretty deep, but like the stronger that muscle is isometrically, when you're trying to load the tendon and get that sort of contraction, the more you're going to be able to use that tendon. So having strong calves allows you to actually use your Achilles, and strengthening your calves will strengthen the Achilles as well. But like that isometric contraction is what unlocks the ability to use that Achilles. And it's the same thing with the quad and the patella tendon and the hamstring tendons and XYZ tendon. But If you can't hold that position, you can't load the tendon.
Wow. What would you say is the connection between the hamstring, calves, and how that affects the ankle? So, for instance, like in this interview, we're almost sitting over an hour and a half, right? So, what are the effects on like tight hamstrings, I guess tight calves when you sit, and that overall general stiffness on the ankle?
Yeah, I mean, I think people sort of oftentimes overemphasize the importance of calf flexibility.
Okay.
Well, people do my ankles are so stiff. It's like, well, your foot is stiff. Your calf is not that stiff. But sometimes people's calves are stiff too. I don't want to discount that, but a lot of times that is the foot. So one of the things that's interesting, and there's a guy, David Gray, who just made a post about this the other day. Really, really good. I got a lot of my foot and ankle stuff from him. He's really smart, and he just had a post about the medial hamstrings. So you've got all the different hamstring muscles. So the hamstrings that are like close to the groin, and some people just kind of like shut off, and that is what actually internally rotates the tibia, your shin. So if you want, so your shin should rotate inwards as your knee comes forward, and one of the jobs of that medial hamstring is to rotate in and keep things stable like that, and the outside externally rotates the shin. So that's part of that interplay of like that gets rotated by your hamstrings, and then those two. So they're sort of like puppet strings, like they'll pull it like that, and then the combination of those puppet strings and then your calf that's like upside down puppet strings really is like a big part of like stabilizing that knee and getting it to track properly. And if it doesn't track properly, a lot of times you'll see people whose knees just like valgus and dive in over their foot, or people's knees that shift outwards over the edge of their foot. And some of that could be actually in the hamstring and the calf not working together properly, or the hamstring not pulling it properly. So that can have an effect there. You can also get different things of like, it's sort of a cause for hamstring tightness, but if your pelvis is misaligned and misoriented, you have a hard time moving and getting locomotion properly. Your gait gets messed up, and then you can start putting pressure on the wrong areas of the ankle. So I see a lot of people like that I get, and we do assessments. It's like you have ankle problems, but you also have like the world's worst hip mobility. So it's like, well, we have to clean up that as well, and you're going to continue to have ankle problems. So like people will call the hips the steering wheel for the lower body, which is an interesting thing to say. And I don't know that I 100% agree with it, but like it gives you a good picture of like if your hips can't work properly, like if your hips can't shift back and forwards when you're in gait, or you can't, it's the same thing, the internal external rotation of the hip. You can't get to that position, you're going to find a way to move forward somehow. And it might just be dumping inwards or dumping outwards at the ankle, or pushing through weird parts of the ankle. So all of that has an effect downstream, but it's also not like the be all end all of everything. Like you have to deal with the ankle, but people will ask sometimes, it's like, dude, do I have a problem with the ankle, or do I have a problem with the hips that's causing my problem with the ankle? It's like, dude, I don't know. Let's just work on both of them. Like it's not what we don't have to just work on one. This isn't a one-way door. We can do both here. That's the beauty of it. And I think that's the first person I heard that talk about that was Chris Corfitz a while back. He's a really good track coach. He's a speed coach, but they do a lot about the foot. If you check him out, you'll see some of the exercises I had you do from him. But it's like he said, he was like, is this a hip problem or is this an ankle problem? It's like, I don't care. We're going to work on both of them and we'll see how it goes. And like, it really doesn't. People like get so caught up in the diagnosis of, oh, I've got this, and like it's a very specific thing of like, it's like, who cares beyond the point that it changes how we do the rehab? I do not care what you have unless it makes a real difference in what we're going to do. You don't have to give me the exact name for whatever is going on. You don't have to give me the MRI diagnosis. Like, if I can just see how your foot is moving and I can see that like there's a pretty clear problem here and that you've missed a whole bunch of hip mobility here, then like we're just gonna fix that. And like who gives a shit? Whatever you told me was like the problem. Yeah. because it might not be. Like people get imaging all the time, and it just gives you things that are not actually problems. Like somebody might have patellar tendinopathy, and they go get MRI, and they're like, "Dude, your patellar tendon is torn up." It's like, well, it might have been torn up before as well. Like, there's so many studies of people that got imaging, and they like you compare people that are in pain that aren't, and it's like the people that are in pain look way better than the people that aren't. That was with NBA players, I think. Like the people that didn't have patellar tendinopathy had way worse looking patellar tendons than like the people that did have pain. So I'm not discounting the value of imaging, but again, like take it with a grain of salt. It's like it's the pain, and you have to sit with it and understand like should this drive everything that we do here.
So I see now both you and Zach critiquing some of the form and exercises that top football clubs have been putting out. Tell me a bit more about some of the challenges you're seeing with what they're doing.
I mean, yeah, I think I posted a video. I have made some videos about stuff that Barcelona was doing, and it's probably just because they were pretty public about posting videos of them, like quote unquote, working out.
Yeah.
And I think Zach made a video about Neymar's rehab recently, and I've seen 1,000 people make it about Neymar's rehab recently. And to be fair, it looked really bad, and I don't have all the information on it, so maybe it's not fair to critique it, but that does not look good for how long it's been and like where he should be at and what he's doing. So that's to be put to the side, like whatever. We'll see how he ends up coming back and what he looks like later. But like that video that I put out talking about like how Barcelona was doing their training, and I can't remember if it was preseason or whatever, but like it was like literally laughably like stupid a lot of times. Of like you're not getting anything out of it. Like there's no performance benefit you're getting out of this. B, you could be doing something that's like going to help you be better during this time, whether it's like training or actually lifting or like letting people recover. Like any of those three things would be better than what you're doing. It was all exercises that did not give you enough of a stimulus to cause an adaptation. Because either the intent wasn't there from players, they were like power cleaning like 20-pound kettlebells or something. I don't remember what it was. I've tried to purge that video from my brain. And then they were like jumping and landing on the pseudo Bosu balls. And I was like, let's just not, like first of all, you're wearing cleats. What do you do? Like the whole thing was just, I don't know if you're just trying to tick a box and be able to say that you did your weight training for the week and you're just trying to get people moving, or if it was like an active recovery session or like what, but I don't know, man. And I've seen some really good training from professional clubs, and I've seen some really bad training. And I think that just like goes to show, like, I think Barcelona's playing pretty well right now. As far as I can tell, I haven't been following them really, but like, after doing really bad training, and I've seen it again this year, it's really bad. But like they're doing well, and their guys are really good players. So it goes to show you that like in soccer or football, if you're European or whatever, like that's not the thing that determines how good you are. If you're Lamine Yamal and you're 16 years old and one of the best players in the world already, like, is weight training going to make the difference for you, really? Could it help? Could it help you? Yeah, probably. But it's just a sport where technical ability is so much more important than other things. And also, everybody's not doing great training for the most part. So it's not like it's such a disadvantage. But that people take this the wrong way and think, all right, that means that I don't need to go lift and I can just try and play and do stupid things. That there's all the fascia guys that love to say, lifting is so bad, just do pogo hops and do that. And I've done the fascia work, and like there's some stuff to it, but like you take it the wrong way. You are not Lamine Yamal, not you. Well, you aren't, and neither am I, and neither are like anybody else. There's 8 billion people in this world. You're not Lamine Yamal, so if you want to be as good as him, you have to try and find any advantage you could possibly have, and that means getting stronger and faster and staying healthier and like all of these things just to try and catch up. he's just going to be that good, regardless. Like, he's so good that it just happened. Like, there is nothing like Leo Messi could have never trained in the gym for his entire life, and he would still have probably been the best player of all time.
Yeah, that is.
And he did, but there's still videos of him bench pressing. Like, it's not like he didn't get in the weight room at all. It's just it's like a fallacy of like the best players in the world. Like, they're just so naturally gifted. It's like Michael Jordan didn't lift weights and he was still dunking. Does that mean you don't need to lift weights to dunk? No, because you're not Michael Jordan. Like you can't dunk. You have to do something different. Like you can't just base everything off of the best players. Like it's the same thing with the foot.
Anomalies anyway, right?
They're 100% anomalies.
Yeah, that's a good point. So technically, we're not anomalies. You might be, at least on the knowledge side, right? You've poked out as an ankle anomaly. I do think that's a really specific, very useful skill, to be honest. Just because, as we've hopefully seen in this interview, the ankle injury or recovery process can be incredibly complex. Some things that I took away were intentionality, right? Meaning you're focusing on the exercise with as much intent. You're trying to get as much of that out of each rep as possible. It's not necessarily only intensity, it's awareness and a couple of other things as well. And then doing more than 2 weeks is you need to do more than 2 weeks of an exercise to say that you've done it. The mental part, I think, is one of the most interesting things. How do you overcome that identity that you're an injured player and referring to that ankle as an injured ankle? What's your advice to people there?
That might just be the hardest part.
So that it is hard. Just to be clear, it is a hard thing because I'm personally struggling with it. So I'm asking.
Right. I think if you prove to yourself enough times and with sufficient intensity that ankle is no longer injured, then you will forget about it.
I like how you said that. So you have to prove to yourself. Okay.
Yeah. And proving to yourself is the hardest thing because you know everything.
Right.
That's like, it's the same thing about you could also call it confidence in that ankle. And it's like, I think Alex Werther just described it the other day. And I really like how he describes things of like breaking things down. His confidence is just your perceived likelihood of what you think is going to happen happening. So if you only feel like 70% confident that this isn't going to hurt, and it's all based on the past of how many times this has hurt, how many times this happened. If you only feel 70% confident that it's not going to hurt, you're never going to stop referring to that as your bad ankle. Once you've proved to yourself so many times that this is not going to hurt, I can do what I want on this ankle, I can jump on it, I can sprint on it, I can land, all of these things without pain, then like you're just gonna it's gonna go away. Like that, you're gonna forget about it. Like I've had multiple hamstring injuries and like rehab them, and like I can't even remember which one it was on. Like the ankle's a little bit different because they spent so long on it, and like I very much remember which one it was just because of how many years it pained me. But like I can't remember which hamstring I pulled last. Like it was a while ago, but like it's gone because I proved to myself enough times that like it's healed. Like you just have to keep proving it to yourself. Like you have to have such overwhelming evidence that it is no longer injured that you have no choice but to believe that it is healthy.
I love that. So to wrap up this quick section before I round out the interview, it's not the right protocol. It won't fit everyone, right? I know you probably might get annoyed at this question, but what are 3 things that people should be doing to bulletproof their ankles? Let's just say.
Yeah. So I think you can like boil down like 80% of what I do into 3 different things. So, actually 2. two, but I'll give you three. I'll move into three things. One is you have to get your shin rotating. Like you have to be able to get that shin to rotate. So many people don't have it. And it's the reason some people can't fully close their knee joint. Some people invert or evert. It was me. That was me. And some people lose ankle mobility. All these. You have to be able to have your shin internally rotate as your knee moves forward and externally rotate as it moves back. Get that done. And these are not in order of importance, by the way. These are just number two is you have to get back that mobility at the foot that you lose after sprains and injuries. You have to reverse the effect that it's had on your foot. So, and that's your ability to pronate. That's your ability to get up onto your big toe. That's your ability to supinate, all those different things. You have to be able to have that mobility to get into the correct positions at your foot to be able to move properly, whether it's walking, sprinting, jumping, all these different things. Fix that. And then you could, I'll give exercise examples at the end of this. And then three is to truly strengthen the muscles around your foot and ankle. And like I said at the beginning, all of your muscles are supinators in your foot and ankle for the most part. And with that goes plantar flexion. And your anterior tibialis is a dorsiflexor. Basically everything else is a plantar flexor. So when you do calf raises and you do isometrics and you do all these different things, you're basically strengthening everything in your foot and your ankle. But people will do things wrong a lot of times. So like one of the best examples that I have and I give to people is if you're doing calf raises, don't think about getting as high as you can on your toes. Only think about how high can I pull my heel up my calf. Totally changes the exercise. And don't lean forward. People lean forward. I did this for a long time. I just lean forward. And like if you go to the top of a calf, people can do this test. It takes 2 seconds. If you go to the top of a calf raise, think about just pulling your heels up and you lean forward into a wall and then you lean back. So you stack on top of your heels. There is a tremendous difference in the calf contraction that you feel. So one, get that shin rotating. You can start by doing it manually, just literally rotating it as you move your knee forward. Then you could do a stretch where you're kneeling on this like seiza position where your toes are pointed together and you're just kneeling on the ground. That helps with internal rotation. You could do it manually, or you could do it like tib cars where your heel's on the ground and you're just focused on rotating that shin. And then you can start to apply it into things like point two, the pronation exercises, where you're just in a split stance and you're working on moving that shin, that knee forwards and backwards in a straight-ish line. Generally, I like to have people aim at the pinky toe, and then you end up at the second toe. Is sort of the arc you want to take.
So my knee will come out to my pinky toe and then land at the second toe, is what you're saying.
It's kind of like a very slight Nike swoosh. So it's just it's sort of like just a tiny bit like that. It's really not a very big thing, but that swoosh at the end coincides with that internal rotation of the shin. So that could help get that. So moving that shin forward properly over a heavy heel in a relaxed foot can be really beneficial for people to get pronation back. And it's difficult, it's not easy. And then once you can kind of get it there, you can start to load it with different exercises. And then beyond, so maybe I should have added the hips somewhere as well. But then it becomes building strength as well. Because we don't want to build strength on top of dysfunction. Right. And then bonus number 4 is you got to get the hips right. You have to be able to internally rotate. You have to be able to externally rotate. You have to be able to shift your hips from side to side. You have to be able to move them. A lot of people get really tight like that. So the more mobile and the more you can control the hips, that'll help people out a lot. So
this is hip motion, when you say side to side like this, but also forward, and this is in the not sagittal plane. I don't know what plane that is. You know what I mean? Like
that's
one
transverse, yeah. So yeah, the ability to get your hips up and down, to move them forward and back. To get them to those are just the 3 things that your hips do. If you can do all 3 of those really well, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot, like, because it's literally everything. And it's not quite that simple, but like working on those give people a lot of help.
Fantastic. Well, this was an absolutely deep dive on ankles. I want to, if you can hang around for a couple more minutes, I want to understand Matthew's way of being successful, essentially, and some of the things. What are 2 things you do every day to make progress?
What do I do every day?
That's probably just something.
Yeah, it probably is. I just have to think about it. One of the things that I try to be, I will answer the question. One of the things I try to do is not be tied to like routines or having to have certain things. Like when I was still playing soccer, I was very particular and I would change it a lot. Like I won't be able to play well if I don't eat this, or if I don't sleep well, or if I don't XYZ before the game. If something happens, then I'm not gonna be able to play well. And that killed me. Like I got rid of my Whoop. I had a Whoop band, and there was one day that I thought I slept fine, and then I saw it, and then it was like, you only slept at 70%. I was like, oh my God, man, I'm going to play terribly today. And I didn't play very well. But then that all clicked in my head. I probably would have just played fine if I thought I slept fine. What is this benefiting me? And I've continued to sort of try and adopt that mentality more and more. I don't need anything to perform. So I try to not get stuck into having things like that. But in terms of trying to be successful, we could talk about it in like a business thing of like, I try to like do something every day that lets people know about what I do. And you can see that as a way to make more money, but it's also a way of, if you really believe in what you do, then the more people that you tell about it, the more people you can help. So like, if I just stopped like promoting anything ever at all, then wouldn't really be able to help anybody anymore. So I try to do something like that every day. And then this isn't like I have to do it every day, but I think one thing that actually is really helpful for me, and I need to be better about it, but I try to do it, is when I don't want to do whatever I have on my to-do list. First of all, I do write it. Actually, I have a to-do list. Maybe that's a better answer than whatever I gave. I will forget everything I have to do if I didn't write it down. When I don't want to do what I have to do on my to-do list, and people, like, I tell some of my friends about this, they're like, what? If I don't want to do it, I will literally just sit here in this chair and until that I feel like I'm ready to do it. Like, I won't let myself do anything else. Like, my girlfriend's walked in here before and she's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to get so bored that I'm excited to do what I need to do. I force myself into boredom, and I try to like, yeah, it's sort of like a dopamine management thing of trying, and it goes into the same thing of like trying to not do super like hyper stimulating things early in the day, because it just ruins you for it ruins me for the rest of the day.
Okay.
Like Manchester City was playing this morning. I wanted to watch the game, but I forced myself to not watch. I watched the last 15 minutes of it, but I noticed a real decrease in the ability of stuff I'm about to get done for the rest of the day. If I would have watched that whole game, like my day would not have been nearly as good. These two things don't mesh very well that I've said, of like trying to not get stuck into like, this means I'm gonna have a bad day, versus like trying to limit the dopamine usage. But that's just that's like a fact for me. Is that like when I do things that are hyper stimulating early in the day, and I think it's science too, but like when I do things that are stimulating like that, I have a worse day. So if I don't want to do something, I just try to create an environment for myself that is so incredibly unstimulating and boring that, and it's, I don't know if you've tried this before, but it literally works every time.
That's interesting.
It legitimately works every time. Partly because I'm just going to sit here until I'm ready to do it. So there's no other option. Well, it always works. Like, some people will just sit there and look at a wall. I just sit here and like, Paul Chek said, if you don't want to work out, just lay on the floor until you're ready. It takes like 4 seconds of like really like pushing through, stopping whatever you're doing. And then from then on, it's just sit here until you're ready to do it.
How long does it usually take you to flip over to, okay, I'm going to do the task?
Not more than like 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. So it's reasonable. So it's almost just like
yeah.
It's
which
a break.
feels like forever. But
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah.
it's really not that long. And I'll do it multiple times in a day sometimes, and it's so effective because it's all you have to get over is that very first part of doing something. Because then once you've started doing it, then the floodgates open and you can finish doing it. And then once you finish doing one thing, you'll continue to do other things. It's so valuable for me that I wish I just did it all the time, but it's a hard thing to start doing, in the moment.
So stop doing anything and then you'll start doing something. That's unique. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. Well, it's like Benjamin Franklin, or maybe a better idea, Nikola Tesla did so many things, but he didn't have anything else to do. He was in it was like the 1800s. What else was he going to do? Read the newspaper again? he had to do something, and it was creating electricity was more exciting than sitting there and watching the sheep go by or something. I don't know what people did in the 1800s, but they didn't have anything else to do. So you had I think that's why people got so much done, was there was nothing else to do. So
yes.
I try to put myself in that position of, all right, well, there's nothing else to do. This is going to be the most interesting thing that I allow myself to do here. So then all of a sudden, eventually I'll want to do it.
Wow.
Or go to sleep. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I'm on the sleep, but I'll fall asleep immediately. What's your self-talk like when you're not making progress? Do you beat yourself up, or are you a nice guy to yourself?
No, I'm not particularly nice to myself. But I try to. I can't remember who said this, but there's something about that. If you just talk shit to yourself and tell yourself how bad you are, then that doesn't work. But if you talk shit to yourself in the sense of telling yourself what you should have done and what you need to do, then it actually is a helpful thing. So I do it. I do it on the field all the time. People probably hear me. They're like, "Dude, just connect a pass." And I don't say, "Dude, you suck." And I don't say it to other people. It's to myself. I'll say it to other people sometimes if I get mad. So I talk to myself of just get it on frame. Just connect the pass. Just take I just give myself directions, and I'll just yell out something that I shouldn't in general. But that's just an expression of frustration. But I get annoyed when I don't do the stuff that I want to get done. But I try to be annoyed at myself in a way that can be helpful in the future. Or I just try. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I try to detach from things a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Do you actually like to exercise? You exercise a lot, so at least on your videos. But do you actually like to exercise? It's a painful activity. This is what I'm asking.
Some kinds.
Okay.
I don't there's exercises class, and you could never get me to do that. I will not go for a jog. I do not like running. I hate running. There's the only way you're gonna get me to run is if there's a ball or you're timing it. And if you're timing it, it better be less than 200 or 300 meters. But I really enjoy going to the court and doing a dunk session. I was doing that. It was so much fun. I don't know that I like lifting weights. I think that's fun, but I think I just like the rush that you get after you do it, something good.
Okay.
Well, I find joy in the wins of it, or sort of in the effort almost, even a lot of times of trying to get something to happen, and then eventually it'll happen, or even if it doesn't happen. You
so
find
intentionality.
Ways to make, yeah. Well, it's literally exactly the same thing where I still do my ankle exercises. And these are inherently boring exercises, but I find the joy in really locking in and feeling something new and really focusing on that. So that I enjoy. Sitting there and doing pronation drills, that is not an inherently fun thing without the intention to make it an enjoyable thing.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good. I like that you call that point out. What's the dream?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I haven't thought that far ahead, to be fair. So things change so fast. I used to make big long-term plans like that. But every time I did that, it just turned out to be so incredibly wrong. And I went down such an entirely different path that I realized it's really not that helpful for a thing for me. For other people, I'm sure it is. But for me, it's just sort of, I just focus on the actions that I want to get done.
Simple. I like that. Are you a big reader? And if so or not, what 3 books do you recommend folks read? It could be anything. I'm just curious as to what books people get excited about.
Yeah. That's what sits over here.
Yeah.
It's all, yeah, 3 books.
It's hard. It's going to be hard, but.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I love I'm trying to remember what it's called. I know it's here and I don't know where it is. Why is this so hard to find? It's by Josh Waitzkin. It's called The Art of Learning.
Ooh, okay.
So Josh Waitzkin have you ever seen the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer?
No, I don't think I have.
So it's a chess movie. So Josh Waitzkin was a chess prodigy, and he turned out to be a really great chess player. And then he transitioned over to Tai Chi push hands, and I think he won Tai Chi push hands world championship. And then he also did maybe jiu-jitsu, and did really well in jiu-jitsu, I think. And then he became like the world's top. It's like foil. I can't remember what it's called. It's like some surfing thing with the foil and then a board. But his whole thing is like being really great at learning and how you can speed up the learning process. So he's got some really interesting stuff in that book. I really enjoyed that book. I think Mindset. This people talk about this all the time. So like I feel bad saying it again, but like Mindset by Carol Dweck is a massive thing if you have a really shitty mindset of whether like, and then this is a quote that people say all the time of like, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably going to be right either way. The whole thing is, but this is like, you actually dive into like what that means and like what it looks like to have a growth mindset versus whatever the other one is.
Fixed mindset, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a really good one. And if I had to pick a third one, The Inner Game of Tennis. That's an athlete one. So it's called The Inner Game of Tennis. And what it really is like trying to figure out how to let your subconscious work. So they do some really interesting things of like, and the guy that wrote it is a tennis coach, but like it literally works for everything. So if you're trying to teach somebody the tennis swing and like you're trying to get him to do like a forehand where you go like over the ball and you get the downspin. And one of the examples is he tried so long to get people to feel and see what like a proper coming over the top and getting that top spin on it looks like. And people just could not get it. He's like, no, you have to flick over the top or whatever you're saying. And people could not get it. And he's like, and he finally just brings out a mirror and people are getting it instantly because they can get that feedback. People's vision of what they think they're doing in their head is what they're physically doing in their body is oftentimes decoupled. So if you can give them the mirrors feedback of like, this is what you're actually doing, and then people can like link that up with their brain, and then you get a better sense of what's actually going on. It's just a whole bunch of shit like that. It's really, really interesting. I think unless I stumble upon something else that I think is really, so that's a sport one. Maybe I'll give like a secondary to that one if you don't care about sports so much. I didn't finish this book. And it's super, super dense, but it is an unbelievable book. It's called Gödel, Escher, Bach. So it basically what it does is so Gödel is a mathematician. He's got Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and then Johann Sebastian Bach, the composer, and then MC Escher is the artist who did like the stairs that look like they're always going up. That was his thing with making pictures like that. And the whole book is just connecting all of this into one sort of idea of like, I'm really not selling this very well, but they take ideas in math. So I'm a math. I really like math. Like
you do? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I studied math for a while in college. I didn't finish it because I just wanted to be done with school. But they take math concepts and then they show you how it mirrors to music and how it also mirrors to art. And they go through all these different, and they use like different parable analogy sort of things of like the tortoise and not the tortoise and the hare specifically, but they use animals as an example to explain these theorems of like how you can create pitches in music that feel like they're always good at getting higher, but it's actually like higher and higher and lower and higher and lower and higher and lower and higher. So it's like it's not actually going anywhere, but your brain senses that it's going higher. And then you can link that to like the MC Escher never-ending stairs. And then you can link that to like incomplete sets in mathematics and different topics like that. So really dense read really can kind of change the way that you see a lot of things. But like that, it's such a 180 from how this whole podcast has gone. In terms of like this is not related to anything at all unless you make it. So that's an interesting book. I like maybe that's a bonus one.
This makes me a lot more appreciative of your analytical approach to fixing ankles, actually, because it makes more sense from a mathematical perspective. It has to be complete. It's and it's very clear as you break down and try to find problems.
So it's got to be simple.
It's got to be simple.
Yeah. I did a lot of math in college, and it's like the thing that you'll learn eventually is that, like, especially when you get into the theoretical classes, like the high level math theory, like classical mathematics, if it doesn't end up being really simple, you're not done. You didn't figure it out if it didn't end up being simple. If you end up with some answer that's like x squared plus root y over that's not the answer. You're not done. You messed up somewhere. So that's part of where that's all come from for me. Of like, if it's not simple, it's not done.
That's even more interesting. What's one piece of advice you have for a high schooler, someone in college, and a professional? Could be anything. Could be life advice. Whatever you think is,
one each, could be useful for their journey.
One each. I like one each because I think the high school folks now who are coming up now, they're a very different world they're coming into.
Yeah. High school, college, and professional. Maybe let's go. I'll start with professional. The biggest, and I'm 25. I'm not like I'm not 85 years old, and I don't have all the experience. But one of the things that for me has been interesting is seeing that there's such a gap between how hard some people work and how hard other people work, and what enables them to get. Sorry, not how hard they work, but how much stuff some people get done versus how much stuff other people get done. And it's sort of decoupled from how hard they work. But you'll see people that literally get thousands of times stuff more done than other people. So basically everything you do, I guess I heard professional, I turned it into like a business and work thing. But like this is what you do for like a third of or more of your life. So it could be helpful. Basically everything you should do, in my eyes, should be pointing towards your ability to get more stuff done. And like that stuff, then the more that stuff you get done, the more you're going to enjoy it, the better you're going to get out of it, and the more you're going to feel good at the end of the day that you got a whole bunch of stuff done, you enjoy doing it. So find out how you can get 10,000 times more results than what you're currently doing.
That's actually pretty good. I like that. I got me thinking. That actually applies to everybody. That's pretty damn good advice to everybody. Okay.
It does apply to everybody, and it applies to me too in terms of I should be getting more stuff done than I am right now. But go back to how I talk to myself. Then for college, college is interesting because I didn't have like a traditional college experience because I was playing soccer a lot, and we went to it was technically a commuter college. So it wasn't as big of an on-campus thing. But probably the thing that I got out of college the most was understanding that what you do in college is, unless you're going to be a doctor or an engineer, like it may be like an actuary or an accountant, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's not going to really help you in actuality. Like I went to school for finance, and I took marketing classes, and I took all these other classes, and like the amount that I actually use that when I run a business right now, like help people with their ankles, is literally zero. Like literally don't use a single piece of it. There's nothing about it that I use. So I would actually tell people that are going to college to learn something that is useful. Like statistics is useful. Coding can be useful. You can also learn that on your own. I mean, if you're gonna be a doctor, you got to learn. You got to go pre-med and do that stuff. If you want to be an accountant, you got to learn that. Learn things that are useful, but then also don't think that that's everything that you need to know. If you go to, I have friends that are like consultants at like big firms in Chicago and New York or whatever, and like one of the things that they tell you when you get there is, all right, you could forget everything that you learned in college. We're going to teach you everything here. It's like for jobs like that, like they literally just hire people that are smart and they teach everything. It's like college is just like a proving of are you smart or not. That's what college really is. And then some people learn things that are applicable. So A, learn something that's applicable, or B, do something and then learn something that is applicable outside of college. Like I started helping people with like athleticism and training and stuff when I was in college. So
that's how you got into it. Okay.
And then high school is a weird
time.
That was a weird time for me too, because I just played soccer all the time and never got enough sleep. So at some point, get enough sleep. Like number one, and this is probably college too. Number one, do just sleep more. Like just get enough sleep. But one thing that I actually think is really helpful that I did in high school was I took difficult classes and I did difficult things, I think. And this is probably more of a soccer analogy than anything, but I put so much time and effort in to try and be a really good soccer player that like that is a skill that I will have forever, of like being able to put an unbelievable amount of effort into something without seeing like a ton of results really quickly. Like
that's a good one.
If I think about like if I'm trying to get good at like marketing or something, or trying to get good at help people with their ankles, I started playing soccer when I was like 3 years old, and I had put in an unbelievable amount of hours by the time I was like 17, and I was nowhere near one of the best people in the world at soccer at 17. 14 years in, and I wasn't even close. Even until the time I was 22, like 5 more years after that, wasn't even close. I was good. I was quite good in terms of like a general population, but like wasn't even close to the best player in the world. And then like the flip side of that, I had some friends that were really smart in high school, and they were smart enough that they didn't need to take notes. Even when I went to a pretty good high school, public high school, but really smart people. They didn't need to take notes, and I was just like a competitive dick that like, if you don't have to take notes, I don't have to take notes either then. And so I would force myself to do stuff like that, of like just unnecessarily making things harder for me. I could have taken notes that whole time in chemistry, but like it just that, so something inside of me was like it would not have let me not take notes and them also not take notes. And I just wouldn't have been able to let that sit in my brain. Okay. So so I guess the 3 pieces are start doing and get good at doing really hard things when you're in high school. I forgot learn something that's actually applicable in college, and then find a way to work 10,000 times, get 10,000 times more output when you're a professional. If you do those 3 things over, what is that, like a 10, 12-year period, you're gonna be in a pretty good spot. You'll be a better spot than I am right now.
Solid
than anybody really is.
Yes, that's fair advice. Okay, so my last rapid round of 3 questions. You're stuck on an island with a specialized chef. You could fly in any ingredients across the world. You're going to be stuck on this island for 10 years. I'll give you a football pitch with some people to play with, so it's not as boring. But you only get 2 meals that this specialized chef can cook. What 2 meals would you choose?
Sushi and steak.
Sushi and steak is clean.
Yeah.
Protein and protein.
That's true.
What's one thing that brings you joy?
I'm just trying to pick
2
things that bring me joy. People telling me that their ankles are getting better and scoring goals.
Yes. Ooh, yeah, I like that.
My first instinct was scoring goals, which gives you an idea of where my head is still at. But
that's good. Well, no one can contest that you're passionate about your sport, which is a beautiful thing. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And the last one, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? Weird one, but it's more of a very sort of long-looking, kind of vibe. If you went the whole way, I give you 100 years. What do you want people to say?
Yeah. So I used to want it to be that he worked really hard, but it's no longer that, because there are people that work
get nothing done.
yeah. There's people that work really hard and don't do anything, and I don't even know that he had a lot of output is like a really something that I care about that much.
Fair enough.
I mean, I think helping a lot of people is a.
He helped a lot of people
and he did what he wanted.
Ooh, I like that. Independence.
But yeah, I mean, those things will kind of couple in my head of what I want to do is help people.
And that's what you want to do in general. Okay. Well,
yeah,
vibes.
Everything kind of flows under that umbrella somehow. It's just about everything that I do kind of. Yeah. I think that would be a good thing for people to say.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Well, I know I took up a whole extra hour of your time, so I want to say I appreciate you sharing how non-simple healing your ankles could be, right? But also, I think reminding folks that you have to be very intentional in order to make some progress with your ankles. It's not a couple of reps and we're back on the pitch. And I think overall, what I think folks could take from your journey is a shit ton of hard work. It pays off. And I've seen that. I've watched your Instagram grow quite large. Right? I think you had like 120 something thousand, not less than a couple of months ago. And now you're at like 148. So the effort that you're putting forth, like I've personally trained with you. So I can sort of actually vouch for the quality of your instruction. I was a shitty client because, I didn't know the intensity and duration of effort that it would take. And I think now that I understand that, it gives me a better framing as to how you move forward. You know what I mean? But all the knowledge that I got were the extra pieces that I was looking for on the next thing. So yeah, I enjoyed the conversation.
Me too, man. This was awesome. And maybe because the ankle is still complex, it means I'm not done yet. So
no, we got work to do. We got work to do.
There's always work to do. There's always output to be had.
Yep. All right. Well, take it easy, man. See ya.